New details have emerged in the Epstein case that are shocking. Microsoft founder Bill Gates admitted to having ties with Epstein and apologized for it. I repeat, I was foolish to spend time with him. I was one of many people who did. But online, people are already discussing an alleged correspondence between Jeffrey Epstein and Bill Gates, in which both of them, 3 years before the COVID-19 pandemic, were modeling and discussing that very pandemic. At the same time, former United States President Bill Clinton and his wife Hillary agreed to testify before the United States Congress Oversight Committee in the Epstein case amid the threat of being held criminally liable for failing to appear in court. And it should be noted here that Clinton was mentioned in Epstein's files, and there is also allegedly information that he asked Epstein for something. At the same time, global media are actively discussing one question. Did no one really know what was happening in Epstein's residences, and if they did, why did they remain silent? The United States Department of Justice documents mention dozens of world leaders, politicians, officials, and celebrities. But later, the Deputy Attorney General of the United States, Todd Blanche, simply shocked the American public with his statement. And he stated the following, quote, "The American people need to understand that having parties with Mr. Epstein is not actually a crime." My name is Alexei Pecci. Let's discuss this topic together, but before we start, I ask you to subscribe to the channel, give a like, and write any comment under this video. Subscribe to my Telegram channel, Pecci News, using the link in this video's description. There you will also find links to platforms and details that you can use to support the work of this YouTube channel with your donation or paid subscription. I will be grateful for any support from you. So, the most high-profile news of recent days regarding the Epstein case is connected with two names, Bill Gates and Bill Clinton. Let's start with the founder of Microsoft. Bill Gates has publicly apologized for communicating with Jeffrey Epstein, a convicted sex offender. And now, in an interview with the Australian television channel 9 News, Gates stated, quote, "I regret every minute spent with him, and I apologize for that." His comments came after the recent publication by the United States Department of Justice of materials from the Epstein case, which include a set of emails written by the late sex offender describing alleged requests from Bill Gates. In one of the messages composed by Epstein, he accused the founder of the technology company Microsoft of asking him to delete emails about a sexually transmitted disease, and he asked for antibiotics. Antibiotics that he could secretly pass on to his wife, Melinda French Gates. His wife has already said Bill Gates should be held accountable for this. The story was that Bill Gates allegedly contracted a venereal disease from a Russian girl at one of Jeffrey Epstein's parties and passed this disease on to his wife. That's why he asked Epstein for some pills, antibiotics, to secretly give them to his wife so that she wouldn't get sick either. But that's at least what came out. Allegedly, that's how it happened. In another email sent to himself in 2013, Epstein also claimed that Bill Gates had, quote, "sexual relations with Russian girls and illegal dates with married women." To this, Bill Gates responded today in an interview with 9 News, quote, "ND. Apparently, Jeffrey wrote this email to himself. The email was never sent. The letter is false. I don't know what he was thinking."
No, apparently Jeffrey wrote an email to himself. That email was never sent. The email is, false. So I don't know what his thinking was there.
And so Bill Gates' name was made public in the Epstein case, along with the names of dozens of other wealthy men. This caused a public outcry, and some lawmakers in the United States are already calling on officials from the American Department of Justice to start an investigation into those who visited Epstein's private island. Bill Gates told 9 News that for several years he occasionally had dinner with Epstein. But he stated that he did not visit the financier's scandalous island and did not meet with any of the women except his ex-wife. The Microsoft co-founder said that he initially sought to establish connections with Epstein so that he could help him create a network of investors for global health initiatives, but later realized that these connections would not be of any benefit. This is a key point, and we will come back to it later. Next, I'll quote Bill Gates. "The main thing was that he knew a lot of very wealthy people and said that he could convince them to donate money to global health. Looking back, it was a dead end, and I was foolish to spend time with him. I'm one of many who regret ever knowing him. The more that comes to light, the clearer it becomes that although it was a mistake, it has nothing to do with that kind of behavior. And here are Bill Gates' comments following statements by his ex-wife, French Gates, who said he should be held accountable for the time he spent with Epstein. Her quote, "All the questions I have left I can't even begin to understand. All these are questions for those people, and even for my ex-husband, they should answer these questions, not me." But let's get back to Bill Gates' statement that he tried to find investors for medical projects for global health through Jeffrey Epstein. Let me remind you, Jeffrey Epstein was a financier who could have helped with that. And now conspiracy theories have already appeared online that Bill Gates and Jeffrey Epstein were modeling how the whole world would live during the pandemic 3 years before COVID-19 even happened. In the declassified materials from the Epstein case, a letter dated March 3, 2017 addressed to Bill Gates surfaced. In his message, Jeffrey Epstein describes the current projects for which proposals and documents were already being prepared at that time. Everything was being readied for investors. Among these documents were pandemic simulations, including the development of disease spread scenarios, digital medical data management systems, research in the field of neurotechnology, and reports on the healthcare economy of the United States. Neurotechnology developments that could be used for intelligence and defense purposes were considered separately, as well as research aimed at treating chronic and degenerative diseases. Interestingly, it's the Russians who are spreading this conspiracy theory the most right now. They say, look, they were preparing for something, they definitely knew there would be a pandemic. But if you read the letter published by the United States Department of Justice and compare it with today's statement by Bill Gates, it turns out that Jeffrey Epstein was actually trying to find investors for Bill Gates' specific niche in the medical business. And it's no secret that Bill Gates had a company referred to as BJC3 in the correspondence, and Epstein could have found money for global health research. And later, in 2019, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation helped conduct a simulation of the coronavirus outbreak that happened a year later. But it wasn't just Bill Gates involved. Former President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton agreed to testify in Congress about the Jeffrey Epstein case. The Clintons had long refused to take this step and agreed to it shortly before the House of Representatives was to vote on whether to hold them criminally liable for failing to appear in court. It is important to note that the interrogation was insisted upon by the chairman of the House Oversight Committee, Republican James Comer. The Clintons themselves previously claimed that they had already provided all the information they had on the Epstein case and stated that the demand for them to testify in Congress was purely politically motivated. Bill Clinton does not deny that he knew Epstein, but insists that he knew nothing about his crimes, and he says he never visited his private island. He stopped contacting him about 20 years ago. But flight records confirm that in 2002 and 2003, Clinton took 4 international trips on Epstein's private plane. There are also photos of Bill Clinton with Epstein, but they are dated from the 1990s to the early 2000s, when the public was not yet aware of the financier's crimes. And, it's really hard to believe that nobody knew anything really in the end. In 2002, Donald Trump told New York Magazine that he had known Epstein for 15 years and that Epstein was, quote, a terrific guy. In 2002, Trump stated, quote, they even say that Epstein likes beautiful women as much as I do. And many of them are quite young, there's no doubt about it. Jeffrey enjoys his social life. That's a quote from Trump. In a strange post on the Truth Social website published on Christmas night in 2025, Trump seemed to hint that he knows more by highlighting the quote, many scoundrels who loved Jeffrey Epstein gave him lots of money, went to his island, attended his parties, and considered him the best guy on earth. And then they dumped him like a dog when things got too heated. But already on Tuesday this week, Trump stated that, quote, the country really needs to move on to something else. Now that nothing has come out about me, except that it was literally a conspiracy against me by Epstein and other people, the country really needs to move on to something else. But Epstein was involved not just in prostitution, he had access to key political figures. For example, in 2013, Epstein invited Elon Musk to his island. The most prominent victim of the recent revelations abroad was Peter Mandelson, a former British cabinet minister who was recently dismissed from his post as ambassador to Washington because of his ties to Epstein. Now he is facing a criminal investigation on charges of leaking confidential government information to his friend Jeffrey Epstein. At the height of the financial crisis in 2008, the Epstein saga also shook the British royal family. Former Prince Andrew has already settled a sexual assault case with the late Virginia Giuffre, who was trafficked by Epstein. The ongoing revelations led King Charles III to strip his brother of his royal titles. Epstein's scandalous network also shook the Norwegian royal family after the publication of friendly and sometimes ambiguous emails between Epstein and Crown Princess Mette-Marit. But when it comes to the United States of America, the scandal that erupted around the Epstein case may, well, at least temporarily help Donald Trump. And Donald Trump has always insisted that America is run by a corrupt clique of vile elites who dominate politics, finance, and the arts. Here you go, details are coming out, and just a few compromising emails are enough to at least slightly confirm these far-right conspiracy theories, which were already claiming that America is being held hostage by some sick deep state mired in sexual perversions. But I want to end this episode with a quote from United States Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, who said today, quote, "The American people need to understand that having parties with Epstein is not a crime. But this means that no one else will be punished anymore." I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. And if you found this episode interesting and useful, you can support it with your donation using the links and details in the description of this video. That's all for now. Take care. Goodbye.